So GoodReads announced their 2024 Reader's Choice Award winners, and basically all it did was make me realize that I'm uncultured. So hey guys, welcome back to another one. So like I said in our intro, GoodReads recently posted their 2024 Reader's Choice book winners. And what it basically is for like a week or so before the winners are announced, they were putting up different categories of books that viewers could vote on for what their favorite book in that category was for the year of 2024. I voted in all of the polls. Not every single one that I voted for won. Some that I voted for won, of course. I mean, you're playing the game of odds here at some point. But when the winners were finally announced, I realized that I haven't read any of them. So that got me thinking that apparently there are all these amazing books out there in the year of 2024, and I have just apparently missed out on every single one of them. And that needs to be fixed ASAP. So that got me thinking, let's talk about the books that won in each category, and then let's read some of them and see if these books don't change my life. Okay, so I have the list of the winners right here. We're going to talk about each one of them. Let's put them up on the screen and talk through the categories. Okay, so first and foremost, we have our fiction category, and in that category, The Wedding People by Alison Espach won. I do own this book, so this could potentially be one that we read this week. For historical fiction, Kristen Hanna's The Women won, and I do also own this physically and on my Kindle. I believe I also might have the audiobook of this one as well, so that also could be an option. In mystery and thriller, The God of the Woods by Liz Moore won, and I do own this one as well. In romance, Emily Henry's Funny Story won, and I do, of course, own this one as well. In romantasy, Sarah J. Maas's House of Flame and Shadow won. Although I do own this is the third book in the Crescent City series, and I have not read the first two. So this is not an option for this video, as I would never read them out of order, obviously. So we can go ahead and not worry about that one. In the fantasy category, similarly, TJ Klune's Somewhere Beyond the Sea won the award, and this is the follow-up to House in the Cerulean Sea, I think it's what it's called, House on the Cerulean Sea. I own that as well, but have not read it, so I will not be reading the second one first. In the science fiction category, The Ministry of Time by Kayleen Bradley won, and I do own this. In the horror category, Stephen King's You Like It Darker won. I do own this book, however, I bought it before I realized it was a compilation of a series of short stories that I do believe have something to do with his previous works, if I'm understanding correctly. Comment below if I'm not. And I don't want to spoil myself for any Stephen King books that I haven't already read, so I will not be considering this one. In debut novel, How to End a Love Story by Yulin Kwong won, and I do own this one, so this could be an option. Going right back to the romance category, Emily Henry's Funny Story won as well for audiobook. So that means that we could kill two birds with one stone in this, so we could be considering that. In the young adult fantasy category, Rebecca Ross's Ruthless Vows won, and I did read this and loved it. In the young adult fiction category, Heartstopper by Alice Oseman won. This is the 5th volume, I believe, in the Heartstopper series, and I have not started that yet, so we will not be considering it. In the nonfiction category, The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt won. I know nothing about this. This is actually the first time I've ever hearing about it, and I am not feeling a nonfiction right now, at least not a self-help nonfiction. That's really not my journey, so I will not be considering this one. However, in memoir, Kelly Bishop's The Third Gilmore Girl won, and not only do I own this, but I also absolutely love Gilmore Girls, so we could consider that one. And last but not least, in history and biography, The Bookshop by Evan Friss. It says A History of the American Bookstore won. I do not feel like reading a historical biography, so we will not be considering that one. Okay, so there was the breakdown, and I'm looking. So we could choose between The Wedding People, The Women, The God of the Woods, Funny Story, The Ministry of Time, How to End a Love Story, or The Third Gilmore Girl. This is a hard choice, and apparently all of these books are amazing, and would add so much to my reading life. So, okay. Let's do what we always do and let's talk about what I'm not feeling right now. As per usual, I am not feeling a mystery thriller at the moment. So The God of the Woods, I'm probably going to push to the back burner. However, what I am feeling is The Women by Kristen Hanna. So I think this is where we're going to start.
I should slow it down, take it easy. I just keep on staring at my phone. Yeah, my head's spinning, heart's racing, knowing that you could give me a call. I lay awake at night because all I seem to think about is you. I don't know what to do. Do I want this too much? I know I have burned you once before. You can chew me up and spit me out if you don't wanna see me anymore. But I just wanna try it because all that I can think about is you. And I don't know what to do. Can I stay for a while? 'Cause I don't know any better. I should say something clever, but I can't think whatsoever. Because my logic's out the window when I'm sitting next to you. Go ahead and break my heart if you want to, but stay for a while if that's okay with you. Am I a crazy person, maniac? 'Cause I just wanna jump right in with you.
It is officially the next morning, and I am happy to report that I finished Kristen Hanna's The Women yesterday. And let me explain something to you. When I say that I finished this book yesterday, I started yesterday on page 54-ish, 58, and this book has 460 plus pages in it. So I read about 410 pages of this book yesterday. I sat down and it just felt right. You know what I'm saying? Like, you just get into this reading groove where when I had to stop reading or when I was interrupted or when I had to go out and like do life things, I just kept wanting to get back into this book. It was so good. I think this goes without saying. This was a 4.5 star. This was excellent. And this is my first Kristen Hanna. I own a ton of her works, but I just haven't prioritized them. And that might have to change because this was amazing. If you don't know what The Women is about, this was about the Vietnam War, which I actually have some family connection to because my uncle fought in the Vietnam War. And actually, while he was in country, while he was in Vietnam, he met and fell in love with my aunt and brought her and her entire family back with him. So I do have Vietnamese family. I do have a Vietnamese aunt, and they've been married for like over 50 years now. And I'm just obsessed with that love story. So reading about some of the brutal parts of the Vietnam War, which I think anyone who knows anything about American history knows that it was a brutal, brutal, brutal war. Very controversial war. And reading some of the brutal parts of the war affected me because I just kept envisioning my aunt, which is horrible, and my uncle, which is horrible. But the end result of this story is just really seeking acknowledgement for the women soldiers and the women members of the military that were over in Vietnam, who this book makes the social commentary that they were oftentimes overlooked or just completely dismissed as a whole. There's this sentiment that there were, quote, no women in Vietnam, which obviously is just incorrect. And our main female character in this book, Frankie, is a nurse that goes overseas for the war. And she really highlights the women who made such a crucial impact in the war effort, and how the nurses that were over there were a stabilizing force for the men who were on the front lines and their contributions to the war. And it was just such an incredibly written, well done book. And although you find yourself disagreeing with so many of Frankie's decisions in this book, it's written about in such a beautiful, poignant way that it doesn't frustrate you. You disagree with her, but you have such a in-depth analysis and an in-depth view of what's going on in her brain that you understand why she's making the decisions that she's making. And you really just connect to Frankie throughout this story, and you feel for her and you empathize with her and you feel compassion for her. So it was so excellently done. And I can tell that Kristen Hanna is an artist. She really is just an artist with words, and I will definitely be picking up more of her books in the future. So the question becomes, do I think that the Goodreads voters got this one right? Is The Women by Kristen Hanna a pick or a pass? I think it's pretty obvious that The Women is a pick. It's amazing. It's so good. I'm so excited that I finally prioritized this book and read it. I cannot believe that it took me this long. So you know what? The historical fiction voters got this one right. So I actually took a look at the rest of the books on our Goodreads winners list this morning, and I have decided that the next book I'm going to pick up is The Ministry of Time by Kaylee Ann Bradley. I think when I was doing this intro, I called her Kayleen Bradley. I believe you pronounce this Kaylee Ann Bradley. I only have this book physically, so this is going to be the first physical book I've read in a while. I've been like attached to my Kindle lately, but I'm very excited to pick this up. I do need a little bit of like a fantasy element after The Women, so I'm so excited to read this. I'm not going to give you a synopsis yet because you know my policy. I like to get at least, well, this is a shorter book, so yeah, still I think I'll get like 100 pages in before I come back and update you. Okay, excuse the horrible angle, but I'm coming here because I was just laying on the guest bed, like listening and reading, because I'm immersively doing this because I have the audiobook and obviously the physical book. So I was like immersively reading, and I'm coming to you guys a little bit earlier than 100 pages because I am on chapter 3, page 71, which, do the math on that, chapter 3, page 71. Okay, we're going to get into that in a second, but I'm on chapter 3, page 71, and like, I know it's early. This is a 350 page book. I have quite a bit more to go. But so far, I am not getting the hype, guys. Like, I'm really not. And that's so like disappointing to me because this could be incredible. Like, the idea of this book is quite literally fascinating. So if you don't know anything about this book, what I've gathered so far is that the British government has figured out time travel, like more specifically opening portals and being able to extract people from their time period and bringing them to modern day London. And when they get to modern day London, they are assigned basically a babysitter that they call like a bridge, right? Like you're basically like the host family for this time traveling expat refugee type deal. The only thing I'm having an issue with is, at least until this point, we have been given literally no reason other than this is an experiment that the British government is doing this. And maybe that is the sole reason. It's just like, let's see what happens if. But they're specifically choosing these time traveling expats from specific times, specific battles at a very specific moments of their life. Like the one that our main female character, who is a bridge, is currently hosting, is specifically taken from the water from an Arctic expedition, like literally right before he died. In what, 1847, I believe? That's the other thing. They randomly call them by the years that they were extracted. So yeah, they keep calling him 1847, so I'm pretty sure that's the year that he was extracted. But yeah, the problem that I'm having with this is that the writing is so pretentious and annoying to me. This author loves a metaphor. She loves a simile, and sometimes it's placed in places that like don't even make sense at all. I'm trying to think of one off the top of my head. So the entire book is like, I was so nervous. My knees were shaking like a box of frogs. Oh, I had no more sense than a doll. I didn't know what a bottle of water was. And you're sitting there being like, what? And the problem is it's used too much. Like it's overused to the point where once my brain noticed how often it was done, now it grates on my nerves. Because it's literally like sometimes 4, 5, 6 times in one page. She just loves a metaphor, loves a simile, and it's feeling very forced upon you. It's not feeling like natural writing, natural prose, natural dialogue. It's feeling like it's very in your face, and it's very like I'm writing this way to be smart. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's trying to be profound and like she's trying to use this language, but it's coming across as very forced. I don't know. I'm just, the concept is so cool, but I also don't feel like the concept is being expanded upon enough. So at this point, 71 pages in, literally the only interactions really that are main female character, the bridge to our main male character, Graham Gore, this expat from 1847. Basically all of their interactions so far have her just been like explaining mundane items to him that he doesn't understand, which was cute like the first time or the second time, like when she had to explain to him like what a TV was, or she had to explain to him like electricity. Like, it was cute the first couple of times, but then like now 71 pages in, she's still explaining literally everything. And you are going through like every conversation of her explaining like fridges and the internet and this. And as the reader, like, I get it. He's from 1847 and he doesn't know what the internet is. We don't need to go through like every modern item that she's explaining to him. It's losing its charm because it's overdone. Same thing with like the simile use and the metaphor use. Like, it's losing its charm because it's overused. I think that's the problem I'm having. So like I said, I'm only 71 pages in. There's so much time for this to turn around and for me to change my mind. But at this point, I'm not understanding the hype. At this point, if I was forced to rate it, I'd probably give it a 2.5. And that's just because it's average, because I think the concept has potential. But if the concept doesn't start being like capitalized on, it's just going to go down from a 2.5. So we're going to truck on. Let's see. Okay. We are now a little while later. I am now on page 204, about 60% of the way through this book. I don't think it's gotten any better. I really just don't like this book. I don't like it. I'm not a gigantic fan of the writing. I still find it very pretentious. I find it overwritten. I find myself just losing focus and losing interest. Like, it is not holding my attention in the slightest. Like, not at all. I find myself so distracted, looking for distractions, because I'm just so not into the writing style or anything like that. But furthermore, let's go like one step deeper. I don't really like the character work in this book. Like, I just don't feel the connection between our main female character and our main male character. Like, I don't really care whether they get together or not. Like, it's now over a year, like almost a year, that they've been like she's been bridging and he's been here, and there's just nothing. It's just like roommates. And even when they have little moments that I think are supposed to make us like see the romantic potential, it's just like two people being nice to each other. Like, there was this scene where he got sick, and that was kind of part of the program that they knew might happen, because you're bringing these people from another time when they weren't necessarily exposed to like these illnesses and these germs. So they said like there is a large chance that some of these people die because they're exposed to illnesses that they wouldn't have been exposed to in their time. And sure enough, he gets sick at one point. And I think there was supposed to be like, this was supposed to be a time where like you really started pulling for their relationship, but really it was just her being a decent person and like taking care of her sick roommate. And I'm just not buying the romance, at least not yet, 60% of the way in. And if I'm already not, like, if I'm not 60% of the way in feeling their connection, I'm probably just not going to feel it at all, if that makes sense. I don't know. I did a little bit of research onto this book because I was so mind blown, because I was like, oh my God, I've seen such rave reviews about this book. And like, so many people whose opinions I love and respect are giving this like 6 stars, and they're loving it, and they're talking about like how beautifully written it is and all this stuff. And I just could not agree more or disagree more. And I looked it up, right? And that put me down kind of like a research rabbit hole. And apparently this book is like a fan fiction to an actual 1800s Arctic explorer named Graham Gore. I'm going to actually put up his photo here. This is the real Graham Gore. Like, this is a real guy who like explored the Arctic, which is the storyline in A Ministry of Time. And apparently the author of this book like researched this story or heard about this story, and this is like a fan fiction to her like going back in time and meeting the real Graham Gore, like falling in love with him. I don't know. Honestly, this book is like a fever dream. It's just so strange. It's so weird, but this is Graham Gore. And now I've kind of shot myself in the foot because now that I've looked this up and I've seen that this is what he looks like, this is all I envision as I'm reading. And I just cannot find him sexy. I just can't do it. I just can't find him like attractive because that's him. I don't know. Like, he's a real guy to me now. Like, I'm just envisioning this guy like in black and white, just like in this book. I don't know, guys. So much of this book just is not working for me. I'm going to finish it because I'm 60% of the way through, but there have been several times through the reading process that I've been like, do I just DNF? Like, do I just accept that this just isn't for me? And maybe it's a me problem and not a book problem. And like, maybe this isn't for me. But I keep hoping that it's just a slow starter. And I keep hoping that like, I keep telling myself, like, at the end of this chapter, you're going to be more into it. Like, okay, maybe at the end of the next chapter, like, you're going to start understanding the hype. And I'm going through chapter by chapter, which, by the way, the chapters in this book, as if it can't get any worse, are like 25 to 45 minutes long. These chapters are so long. I think this entire 350-page book has like 10 total chapters, which just, once again, it's not like a deal breaker for me, but it's just not my preferred style. I prefer like short, quick chapters that are like action packed. And this is just not my style. There are literally like 45-minute chapters in this book. I don't know. There's really not much that's working in this book for me. And since my last update, I think in the last update I said if I had to have rated it back then, I would have given it a 2.5. And I think since then it's probably dropped to a 2. It certainly hasn't gotten better. It's arguably gotten worse. And every single chapter, I just find myself more disappointed. So I don't know. This is just not working. But maybe in the last 40% of the book, that will change my mind. I still cannot see this going over. Like, even if everything goes right for the rest of the book, I still can't see this going over a 3.5 star from where it is now. But I don't know. If you're just so disenfranchised with it 60% of the way through, is it really that good of a book? Even if the ending is mind-blowing? I can't see it, but never say never. So I might need a brain break. We might be coming back in the morning.
Beneath the stars, beneath the skies, in darkest darkness or brightest light, I'm calling out for you. I'm calling out for you. Within the storm, within the fire, when I feel hopeless, you're by my side. So I'm calling out for you. I'm calling out for you.
Well, it's official. I did just finish The Ministry of Time. Oh my goodness. Okay. My final rating is going to be a 2.5 star because that's just what it is. It's a 2.5 star book. It's fine. Most of the book sat at around a 2 star. The end did pick up a bit. I became just like the tiniest little bit, like little smidgen more interested in the characters and the love story and the ministry and what was going on. So maybe at a height of my interest, it was at a 3. Low was at a 2, high was at a 3. At the whole book as a whole sat somewhere in the 2.5 star range, which is average, fine. I would say that most of it sat at around a 2, and then like the last maybe 10% hovered around a 3 because the last, chapter and a half was interesting. And when I say chapter and a half, I mean like the last 50 pages of this book, because this book legitimately only has 10 chapters and 350 pages. They had very long chapters. It is what it is. There is just not much about this book that really like worked for me. The characters were flat. I didn't believe the love story. They felt distant. Now that I know that this is Gore, I had trouble connecting with the main male character, and it got even weirder that there was like, it's closed door for the most part, but there's several intended spicy scenes, and there is some implication, and there is some like spicy talk. And when I was supposed to be envisioning this guy saying some of the stuff that the main male character was saying, it literally got to the point where I was in my car listening to the audiobook, and he was like in the middle of spicy talk, and I was cracking up because like this guy I don't know, this guy doesn't do it for me, guys. So there wasn't a ton about this book that I liked. Great potential, just really poor execution in my opinion. The writing tries to be profound, but it really just sounds like forced. It's trying way too hard. Yeah, moving on. That's such a bummer because I really wanted to like this. I did not. And by the way, the entire time, just separate story. This has nothing to do with the ratings, but the entire time I was referring to it just habitually as the Ministry of Magic. Like I could not get that through my brain that this was the Ministry of Time. So yeah, not good. Okay, so now if I'm looking at my list, we have read the GoodReads Historical Fiction Choice, and we have read now the Science Fiction Choice. So we could read a fiction, we could read a mystery thriller, we could read a romance, which would also get our audiobook off of our list. We could read our debut novel choice. Ooh, what do? We could read our memoir. Oh, the memoir. I forgot about the memoir. Okay. I forgot about the memoir. Oh, and it's Kelly Bishop. It's Gilmore Girls related. I think we are going into the third Gilmore Girl, which is Emily Bishop's memoir about working in her Gilmore Girls days, and I'm assuming before and after, and I'm just so in the mood for this. I have it on audio, and it's narrated by Kelly Bishop herself, and I recently read Tom Felton's Beyond the Wand, which is Draco Malfoy and Harry Potter and his time like before Harry Potter and after Harry Potter, during and after Harry Potter, and I listened to the audiobook that he narrated, and it really added to the story for me. So I'm kind of going to keep that ball rolling, and I want to hear Kelly Bishop tell her story. So I am going to go sit down and download the audiobook and read the memoir choice from GoodReads. Let's hope this one impresses me. Whew. Okay, next night. It is like 6:30 o'clock the next night, and this is the first chance I am getting to stand still for 5 minutes to come and update you guys, but we do have updates. First, Diet Coke. Yeah, that's good. We do have updates. So I powered through the third Gilmore Girl and finished it in like 6 hours between yesterday and today, and I am giving this a 4.75 stars. I really loved this. And more importantly, I learned so much about Kelly Bishop. I had absolutely no idea what a storied career she had, but what I loved most about this book was just how candid and vulnerable and honest she was about so many parts of her life. It was so expressive, so beautifully done. It was very funny. She's so funny. She's hysterical. And I just found it so genuine. Besides for the fact that I love learning more about her experience filming Gilmore Girls, obviously Emily Gilmore is one of my favorite characters on that show. I identify so much with so many parts of the relationship between Emily and Lorelai, so I just really enjoyed kind of going back to Stars Hollow in a more like realistic, like real world way. And it was amazing, but I didn't know that Kelly Bishop was a dancer, and she's a Tony Award-winning actress. I don't think I understood that. Basically, my only true experience with her, besides for like catching her as side parts in movies, was on Gilmore Girls. And reading this book, I learned that she is like an icon. She's an icon, and her late husband was an icon, and she had so many great experiences in show business and with these big stars and working on these projects, and it was so amazing, and it read so quickly. And once again, similar to what I said in my video about immersively reading Beyond the Wand, if my dog is barking, that inevitably means that Amazon is here dropping off packages. Hold, please. It was indeed Amazon dropping off packages. Newton is my official Amazon detection system. He always alerts me when anyone is here, but particularly Amazon. So anyways, like I was saying, if you watched my video about how I immersively read Beyond the Wand, when I say immersive reading, I mean that I listened to the audiobook while I read along, like on my Kindle or in the book. So I was reading with my eyes while having the author's narration play in my ears. And there's something about the visual and auditory combination that just makes this such an immersive experience. Hence why I've always heard it called or referred to as immersive reading. So I immersively read The Third Gilmore Girl as well. The audiobook is narrated by Kelly Bishop, and then I followed along on my Kindle copy, and I really loved doing that. There's something about it that just makes it so much more engaging. So that's what I did. It was great. It was fantastic. I highly suggest. I find that I've been very much getting into my like memoir, celebrity memoir stage with celebrities that I either am interested in learning more about or that I have like an emotional connection to before I go into the book. For Kelly Bishop, it was because she was Emily in Gilmore Girls, which is one of my favorite shows with Tom Felton. It was because he was in Harry Potter, which is obviously like one of the greatest loves of my life, that whole entire series. So yeah, 4.75 stars. So overall, would I say this is a pick or a pass? I think it's fairly obvious that The Third Gilmore Girl is a pick. So then after I finished that, because I finished it so quickly and in one day, I did not turn the camera back on, but I automatically jumped into The Wedding People by Alison Espach, I think is how you pronounce her last name. And I am now 53% of the way through this book. I think that's somewhere around page 200 on the Kindle version. And I'm liking it. So just to refresh your memory, this is the GoodReads winner for the fiction category. And if you haven't heard just a brief synopsis what it's about so far, 200 pages in, I feel pretty comfortable giving you like an obviously spoiler-free, very brief summary of what I've been able to absorb so far. So we are following our main female character who has been going through some really hard times in life, and she is losing her husband. She's had some fertility issues. Her job is falling apart. She and her best friend are ending for specific reasons. And because of that, she decides that she no longer wants to be in this world. And she books herself into this happy place, expensive luxury resort to have her one last hurrah before she ends it all. And when she gets there, she finds that she just happens to have booked the only room outside of this like block of wedding reservations. So there's this giant wedding going on, and she happens to be one of the only people at the resort that's not part of the wedding. And through a series of semi-comedic events, she ends up meeting the bride for the wedding, who's this very effervescent, very outgoing, very kind of self-absorbed but spastic bride. And the woman ends up finding out that she is not going to be with us much longer and that those are her plans for this weekend. And her attitude actually very comically is, well, you can't do that this weekend. It's my wedding, right? Like, you would be throwing a damper on my wedding. Like, no one's going to be paying attention to my wedding if you go and do this on this particular weekend. And she basically makes it her mission to not allow her to leave this world on her wedding weekend. But in that kind of very self-absorbed, like egotistical way, she's also saving our main female character's life, and how that relationship is going to progress from there, I don't know. This book is very heavily like a character study, and it's not just a character study of our main female character. We're doing a character study of her soon-to-be ex-husband, of this bride, of the bride's of her fiance, the soon-to-be groom for this weekend. Like, it's just written in such an engaging, interesting way. I am very much enjoying this so far, and 53% has flown by. It is not super action-packed. Like I said, it is really just a very literary fiction exploration of people and what makes people tick and what makes people's emotions like become what they are, an exploration of grief and an exploration of betrayal and an exploration of, you know, self-absorption and just what makes people who they are, and delving into their backgrounds and what forms their thoughts and their beliefs and their emotions. But there's something very interesting about the way that it's written. Like 53% of the way in, I'm understanding why this was chosen, because it's very intriguing, and I find myself it's kind of written in a strange way where like there's really no like chapters. There is, but there's not. Like there's no delineation between the end of the chapter and picking up into the next chapter. So when you're reading it, sometimes it's not even marked as a new chapter. It just skips to the next page and there's like a blank paragraph space. So like, you know that there must be some sort of break and a pause and you're entering into like a new way that the story's going. But it's written in a very kind of stream of consciousness way. I don't know if I'm describing this right, but it flows very well. And it flows in a way where you kind of don't want to stop. Like there's no good place to stop. So I'm flying through it. I'm really liking it. I'm going to sit right now. I have a little bit of actual work for a client I need to do. So I'm going to turn on the audiobook and listen to it. I'm enjoying the audiobook, but not as much as I'm enjoying actually physically reading this one. But for the sake of being efficient while I answer some emails and write some contracts, I'm going to go ahead and put this in my audiobook while I work. And let's see if I can finish this tonight. That'd be a little bit of a chore because I think I have like 4 or 5 hours left on the audiobook, and I do have to bring my son to practice. I do have to go to my dad's house and do some stuff. So we will see, but I will be back later on. It is now 1 o'clock in the morning and I have hit the wall about an hour ago, like head first straight into the wall. I'm so tired, but I wanted to come on here before I go to bed. I'm not going to talk for too long. I don't even think my brain can process a long chat, but I wanted to let you guys know that I did finish The Wedding People. I flew through this today. I'm so excited that I did because really, honestly, I think I started this morning on I think I said like page 40, if I remembering correctly. And I just finished this. It was very good. I'm giving this a 4.25. I stand behind everything that I already said. This is absolutely very lit fic vibes, which is appropriate because it is a literary fiction. I'm so tired. So yes, the lit fic is giving lit fit vibes. These are the 1 a.m. thoughts from me that you're going to get. This is the quality of review that you're going to get at 1 a.m. However, I will say that this is a lit fic character study, okay? This delves into a lot of characters, their psyche, their grief, their emotions, and it takes you through the story. So don't go into this book wanting an action-packed, something epic happens every chapter. That's not what you're getting. You're getting like a meandering look through exploring feelings, deep thoughts, and interpersonal relationships, but it is so good. It is so witty. It's so entertaining. The banter and the dialogue in this is so smart. It's just intelligently written. It's so great. There was no stupid third act conflict breakup. This was like literally hanging out with your friends for a weekend. I loved it. So good. 4.25 stars. Is this a pick or a pass? This is a pick for sure. GoodReads was 100% spot on with this one. But now it is my bedtime. So I'm going to go to bed. I'm not even going to bother figuring out what we're going to pick up in the morning. We will talk about that when I am well rested, when I return bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, which I will in the morning. So this is going to go be a couple hours of sleep for me, but it's going to feel like 2 seconds for you. So should we do one of those really cool transitions, which I'm probably going to forget to do. But all right, guys. Night night. Good morning. I am significantly more awake than I was last night. Last night, I swear to God, all I did was shut off the camera, go upstairs, head hit the pillow, and I was done. Like I was out. I feel like I was a walking zombie when I came here and talked. So I don't even remember what I said, but hopefully my review of The Wedding People made any sense. Hopefully it was understandable in the English language. I don't know. Your guess is literally as good as mine on that one. But I'm back. I'm awake and we have to pick our next book. So let's take a look at which books I still have on the Goodreads choice lists. Okay, so we read The Wedding People, we read The Women, we read The Ministry of Time, we read The Third Gilmore Girl. Okay, so which one am I in the mood for? I could do The God of the Woods, I could do Funny Story, or I could do How to End a Love Story, because those are the ones that I currently own. Right away, am I in the mood for a mystery thriller? I kind of am not. So I'm more in the mood for a romance. So I'm trying to decide between Funny Story or How to End a Love Story. Okay, we have some decisions to make. So if I'm trying to choose between How to End a Love Story or Funny Story, I think the smarter choice for me right now is to go with Funny Story, because Funny Story is not only the Goodreads romance pick, but it also won the Goodreads Choice Award for audiobook. So I feel like if I do this one and I listen to it on audio, I can knock 2 categories off our list. And I am so in the mood for a romance. More specifically, I am so in the mood for an Emily Henry romance. So this is hitting all my boxes right now. However, with that being said, am I going to go directly into reading Funny Story right now? No, I am not. You want to know why? Because the one and only Miss Destiny Sidwell just posted her Bookmas video of reading the entire Harry Potter series. And I am equal parts jumping out of my skin excited and freaking out scared, because I honestly don't know what my reaction will be if Destiny does not love Harry Potter. Harry Potter changed my world. It is what made me, I was reading before Harry Potter, but not to the point where it was a passion and a love and a decompression. Harry Potter taught me about a passion for reading, and I will defend anything Harry Potter with my whole chest for the rest of my life. And if Destiny doesn't like it, that'll ruin my entire day. It'll ruin my entire day, but we're going to be brave and we're going to watch that. And then we are going to jump into Funny Story. We need to talk about the first chapter of this book, because my blood is boiling. It's kind of confusing, but I think I've got a handle on it, and this is mind-blowing. Okay, so let's see if I can explain this in a way that makes sense, because the whole point of the story is a little bit convoluted. I want to get it out while it's fresh in my mind. Okay, so our main female character and narrator's name is Daphne. She is engaged to her fiance, Peter. Peter has a female best friend named Petra, and they grew up together, like their families vacation together, their moms are friends, their dads are friends, and he has always assured Daphne that they are beyond platonic, that this is like his sister. And Petra has kind of like enmeshed herself in their lives, and Daphne has kind of just felt like she's forced to almost try to become friends with Petra, because Petra's just always going to be there. You know, Petra is an institution in Peter's life, and she's always going to be around, and Daphne wants to be friends with her. It also is said that Petra is absolutely stunning, and the fact that Daphne very specifically makes mention of that several times means that in my brain, like, Daphne knew, like, she had reservations. And some of it could have just been like normal jealousy, like an absolutely stunning girl hangs out like weekly with your fiance, but also I think she had some inclinations. So long story short, Petra is dating this guy named Miles and seems relatively happy. So I think Daphne is like happy with the fact that Petra seems happy. Daphne and Peter are getting married. Like, everything's okay. They have their different situations going on. So we're creeping up closer to Daphne and Peter's wedding. And the night of Peter's bachelor party, he goes out. And of course, it's painted as like, of course, Petra's going to be there because she's his best friend. I'm automatically like, don't love that. Like, whatever. She's his best friend. Daphne is telling herself that, like, of course Petra's going to be there. She's a member of the wedding party. She is Peter's best friend. He wouldn't do his bachelor party without Petra. I would make the argument that Petra is not a bachelor. Okay. She doesn't belong at the bachelor party, but whatever. So they go out and Daphne stays at home and they go out for his bachelor party. And Peter returns home to tell her that at his bachelor party, Petra decides to profess her love for him and says that they've loved each other their entire lives and that this entire time they've been lying to each other that they've been friends and that they actually want to be more. And then proceeds to tell her, like, hey, by the way, I own this apartment, so where are you going to go? Because I'm moving Petra in. But don't worry, I'm going to be nice to you and I'm going to give you like a week to figure it out because Petra and I are taking off on vacation. Excuse me, what? Slow your roll, Mario Andretti. What the hell is going on? Like, the outrage. But long story short, before you get explained this backstory, the first part of the chapter is Daphne asking her new roommate Miles to turn his music down. So I guess what ends up happening is Peter kicks Daphne out, moves Petra into their apartment, and then Daphne has nowhere to go, but knows that Petra must have also broken it off with her boyfriend Miles. This is so confusing. But Petra must have broken it off with her boyfriend Miles, and Daphne knows that Miles now must have an extra room at his place. So they kind of like swapped. Daphne and Peter originally were over here living in their apartment, and Miles and Petra were over here living in their apartment, and they just kind of like swapped. So now it's Peter and Petra and Miles and Daphne. Obviously, Miles and Daphne hardly know each other, so they're just kind of like awkwardly roommates that both are like got kind of screwed in this situation, and Peter and Petra get to go and like play house and be happy, I guess. It just seems so incredibly selfish to me, and I can't even like, how is this redeemable in any way? But I know that if any author can redeem them and write in a way that makes me even want to like quote unquote look at them again in this book, because right now Peter to me is like irredeemable. Like, sorry, what an asshole. Just what an absolute asshole. What a dick move. I don't love that. And Petra is a homewrecker. So I have no, like, I don't even want to talk about this side of the equation, but I know that if any author could redeem them and make them relatable, it's going to be Emily Henry, because she's a master of her craft. So I'm excited to see what happens. But so far, the first chapter or two have been outrageous, crazy, but Emily Henry, one of my favorite authors of all time. Her writing is at a level that not many other authors could get to. So I'm liking it, but I wish we could just focus on Miles and Daphne. I don't want to talk about Peter and Petra anymore. Like, they're dead to me at this point. I love that I am outraged for Daphne. Like, I am that best friend that, like, if you hurt my girl, like, you're done. You're just cut off. You're done. And I have labeled Daphne my girl because I feel so bad for her right now at this moment. Like, I'm sure she's not perfect, and I'm sure that'll be explained. But right now, on, 3/4 of the way through chapter 2, I am so hurt for Daphne. And I would love to just tell Peter off as Daphne's best friend. But let's see. Another book that I read in one day. One day. I started, funny story, this morning around like 9-ish, something like that. And it is now midnight and I just finished it. And I am giving this a 4.75 stars. This was incredible. Emily Henry does it a frickin' again. She is probably, like, I honestly think she's climbing the ranks. And I'm trying to decide if I want to go and like jump in and say that she is. But I'm going to go ahead and say she's still climbing the ranks as one of my favorite authors. Like, she is quickly climbing and ascending, I should say, to my God tier authors. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's already an auto buy. Like, anything Emily Henry writes, I will buy, I will read. I have so far read Beach Read, which was a 5-star read for me this year. Probably one of the strongest, like, visceral reactions I got after I closed a book. I read Book Lovers, which was a 4.75, I believe, and now Funny Story, which is a 4.75. So I have not rated an Emily Henry book under a 4.75 since I've started reading her, which is amazing. She has to be one of my highest rated authors. Like, even one of my other favorite authors, the infamous Sarah J. Maas, I have rated some of her work 3 stars. I've never done that with Emily Henry. This was incredible. And let me tell you something right now. Miles, the main male character in this book, is right up there for one of my favorite book boyfriends that I've read so far. Their banter in this book and in Emily Henry's writing in general is so good. It's so realistic and it's so intelligent and it's so witty and it's not cringy at all, and it makes you giggle and it makes you laugh, and you can really like envision yourselves having these conversations. And it's banter, romantic banter, like with one of the romantic interests in the book, but it's also just like the interpersonal banter between like friendships, and like there's some familial like mother-daughter banter and things like that. And it's so good and it's so realistic and it's so charming and it's so witty and funny. But even when it's in a more serious situation, it packs a serious punch, and she has such gorgeous prose, and the pacing in her books is fantastic. What did knock it down just that little quarter star where I couldn't quite tick it over to 5 stars was there was parts of this book where I felt like it did slow the story down a little bit, or conversations that seemed kind of pointless. Like, I'm not saying that they didn't add something to the book. They added like an entertainment value, or maybe it was done to kind of further the way that you viewed their relationship. But do I think that it necessarily had to be in the book? No. And sometimes I think when you were like chomping at the bit to figure out like what was going to happen or to resolve a conflict, they would have these kind of semi-inane conversations that took me out of the plot a little bit. But that is, I really have to pull. I really have to grasp to find criticisms of Emily Henry, but I am very stingy with my 5 stars. So I think in fiction, not in nonfiction, celebrity memoirs, I'm a lot easier. I give away like 5 stars, as you've seen, because who am I to judge somebody else's life? So when I'm giving a 5 star in a nonfiction, it's basically just like if the writing was decent and I liked the story, it's a 5 star, because like I love that those people sat down and wrote and wanted to kind of give us this story about their life and to let us into their life. It's such a vulnerable, hard thing to do. But when you're talking about specifically fiction, I'm very stingy with my 5 stars. So this was amazing. 4.75 stars. If you are even questioning whether this was a pick or a pass, this is 100% a pick. Emily Henry, I have a strange feeling will always be a pick, but Funny Story was no different. So let's go over what I read this week, because it was a really great reading week. So this week we wanted to see if the GoodReads Reader's Choice book winners were flops or if they lived up to what all of the readers voted on. And I read 5 of the books encompassing 6 categories. So let's do a really quick recap before we finish up. So I started off reading the historical fiction pick, which was The Women by Kristen Hanna, and I ended up giving this a 4.5 stars, and this was absolutely a pass. Amazing, incredible, can't wait to jump into more Kristen Hanna. Then I jumped into the science fiction pick, which was The Ministry of Time by Kaylee Ann Bradley. Unfortunately, this was personally a pass for me. You can feel free to disagree. Please comment below if you disagree. Maybe I just didn't like get it, quote unquote. But I gave this a 2.5 stars and it just kind of didn't work for me. So this one, in my opinion, GoodReads was a little off the mark. I also read The Third Gilmore Girl by Kelly Bishop. This was in our memoir category. And I did give this a 5 star. I loved the way Kelly told her story. I didn't agree necessarily with everything in the book, but the way that she wrote it and the insight into her life was absolutely amazing. And just being able to get back kind of into the Gilmore Girls world was so nostalgic. However, what stood out the most in this book was all the things that I learned about Emily Gilmore, aka Kelly Bishop, that I never knew about her. She has lived quite a fascinating life and she put it on paper very successfully. Then I jumped into The Wedding People by Allison Espak. This is GoodReads' fiction pick for 2024, and I gave this a 4.25 stars. It was excellent, just a little bit meandering and rambly for me. And last but not least, I picked up Funny Story, which was GoodReads' pick for romance and audiobooks categories, and I gave this a 4.75 stars. What a fantastically successful week of reading with so many passes. I do ultimately think that the readers on GoodReads know what they're talking about and I can trust their opinions. So if you stuck around this entire time, comment the computer emoji. I think there's a computer emoji to show me that you are on GoodReads, rating your books, reading your books, and you have good opinions just like all the other viewers on GoodReads. And then do all the other things that you guys excel at, are fantastic at, nay, professional at. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.